two guests who have been a great inspiration for me over the years. I'm here with Doctors Kyle and Marcia Pruitt, joining us remotely from Massachusetts. Kyle and Marcia Pruitt are the innovators of the father involvement research and the developers of the supporting father involvement program. Kyle is a child psychiatrist and professor at the Yale Child Studies Center, and Marcia is Associate Dean of Academic Affairs at Smith College for Social Work. The Pruitts have co-authored several books together, including Partnership Parenting, How Men and Women Parent Differently, Why It Helps Your Kids and Can Strengthen Your Marriage. So the title of our show today is Your Father Let You Do What? And thanks to Kyle for giving me that idea. Welcome, Kyle and Marcia.
Thank you, Brad. Great to be with you.
Nice to be here.
It's great to have you guys here. The first question for you guys is, what are the names and ages of your children?
We have Olivia, who is 21 and currently residing in Calgary, Alberta. We have JD, who is 18 and who is a freshman at Stanford in Palo Alto in California. We have Emily, who is 46, and she is a teacher and raising our grandchildren with her husband's help in not too far from where we live in Massachusetts. And the oldest is Lisa, who is a pediatric nurse practitioner who runs a school program in our school program in Portland, Oregon. And boy, the things we have learned from them.
Awesome. How many grandchildren do you have?
We have four. So They pretty much are all middle school to early high school age.
Awesome. What would you say for you guys are your favorite part of, what's your favorite part of being parents?
Oh, those long dinner conversations where you talk and laugh, and then suddenly they tell you something that they've been sitting on for a while that they want to talk about, and the moment is right. And it's just a sort of perfect moment, unplanned, where everybody is interested in talking and listening to each other.
Awesome. That is so cool. Sorry, go ahead, Marcia. Go ahead, Kyle.
I have, well, you can probably tell from what Marcia said that our children are reasonably verbal and they're at least willing to sit at the dinner table with us. And that's because we try to lure them with decent food and a lot of interest in their lives. And we have no electronics at the table and no television on. And there's a lot of disclosure that goes on. But that's sort of adolescence and late adolescent life. I think what I loved about getting children to that point is the sort of astonishing growth of their language and their interest in the world around them, and the incredibly funny and paradoxical things that they say as they try to figure out the world. Because as an adult, we often think we've got this pretty well figured out until a child nails you with a question. One of the ones that comes to mind is that I was walking home after kindergarten with Olivia one day, and she was at a very diverse international school in New Haven, Connecticut, and she just grabbed my hand and she looked up at me and she said, "Daddy, am I white?" And I just loved that question. As you can imagine, I heard you giggle, Brad. And who would think to ask that question if you were 5 years old? You know, and you know, am I my color? And that just led to a lot of. I tease her about that comment about that today. But I love the opening of the mind, and you know that starts in infancy and it never stops. And I think as parents, it's just such a privilege to be part of that adventure.
Wow, that is so cool. Thank you for those answers. You talk a lot about important things as parents, especially dinner time, removing distractions, having quality time, lots of talk and laughter, sharing moments together, and then also talking about the development and witnessing their development and also how that kind of inspires us to learn and to be better people and parents and whatnot.
Part of what's fun about any age is figuring out when you're right where they are, when you're a little behind, and when you're a little ahead. Another favorite story, my family's from Philadelphia and Kyle's is from Indianapolis. And one day while I was driving, Olivia asked me, where do babies come from? And I gulped, thinking, oh, I knew this was coming. And as I went on turning myself in contortions, trying to figure out how to tell her what was age appropriate, she stops me and she says, Mommy, I'm not asking that. All I want to know is where do babies come from? Philadelphia or Indianapolis? So that's an example that it takes a few moments sometimes to figure out when you're ahead or behind, and when you get it right, it's like music that works, as opposed to music that sounds a little grating.
Absolutely. I wanted to ask you guys about the recent research that you are aware of on the importance of father involvement in child development. What are the recent findings showing us?
They are actually coming from everywhere.
Okay.
They are in interventions. They are in brain research. They are in neuropsychology. They are in every field. We're learning how they're in animal research, and all of it is pointing to the same thing, that when fathers are positively involved, that it has numerous effects on lifetime skills and attitudes of children. Sean, you want some more?
Yeah, this has not happened overnight. When I started thinking about this in the 1980s, the literature search took about 20 minutes because of how little information there was. And I don't think that's simply because fatherhood was being overlooked. I think it was being avoided because I think our preoccupation with attachment and with mother-infant bonding had a lot to do with helping us understand what infants were even about. And that was a very important part of the history of psychology and understanding human development. But we really got kind of stuck there. And I got interested in this because I was working with very young children, just verbal, who were fascinated by their fathers and thought their fathers were very important people in their lives. And I wasn't hearing any of that from pediatricians, mothers, grandparents, only the children.
Oh.
And I got really interested in, well, let's see if we can figure out some way to understand what the children are even talking about. And that led us, me and others, to look at, well, are there any trends in behavior when mothers and fathers are parenting their children that are different, and do they matter? But I think the bottom line of your question, where's the research, the contemporary research? Well, it just gets more and more detailed and more and more. We're now looking at, for example, brain imaging of fathers when they respond to a picture and a video of their own baby versus a picture and a video of someone else's baby, and the parts of the brain that light up and the parts that don't, and how different they are from the mother's brain. So we are, that's very exciting research. Our closer to home, Marcia, why don't you talk about the cortisol research?
Yes, this is hot off the presses, but for years we have had very positive effects of a program that has actually been implemented in Lethbridge for a long time called Supporting Father Involvement.
Yes.
And we've just got some new data that shows that not only does it reduce parental depression and anxiety and do well for kids and reduce conflict and improve collaboration, but it actually reduces cortisol in pregnancy for moms and dads.
And just to remind you, cortisol is a stress-mediating hormone, and the less of it we have, the better off we do in our relationships. And I didn't want to introduce that in a slightly cumbersome way. That research was not done in Lethbridge. The intervention was done in Lethbridge. but the research was done with an at-risk population here in Springfield, Massachusetts. But I think we've gone from anecdote and wow, dads are cool and it's fun to have them involved, now to saying we have the neurobiological proof that they change lives in the way that they're involved with their children.
Awesome. That is really interesting. I'm glad to hear the hot off the press research on that. And the program that Kyle and Marcia are talking about is Supporting Father Involvement program that they have started and internationally facilitated now. In Lethbridge, we've been running that program at Family Center since 2010. It's been going strong. And I have been with the program since 2012. I've seen some huge changes and impacts on the lives of dads, moms, children, families, and marriages from the program. So it's been amazing, but that is great to hear the new research on that and other areas as well. So Kyle, I do appreciate what you mentioned about how father research has started to take shape in the 80s and whatnot, and it's grown ever since. But I'm just curious though, because a lot of people listening today who are parents were growing up and they might be in their 30s or 40s or 20s. But I'm curious to know from your guys' knowledge, how has fatherhood changed within the last 40 years, or how has it progressed?
Well, I'm not sure fatherhood has progressed as much as co-parenting has progressed. Kids have always been in love with their fathers, and fathers have always been involved with their children, but in more gendered ways. And as we have peeled off the strict gender roles, fathers have been able to be involved on more levels, earlier, in more nurtured ways that used to be reserved for mothers. And that has required shifts with mothers going back to work and fathers spending more time at home in ways that have really made those roles about who does what rather than which gender does what.
That's awesome.
I also think one of the changes has been the interest in parents in their 20s and 30s in having much more egalitarian relationships around parenting than their parents had. And it's very common to hear young, recently married men say, I really do want to stay close to my kid. I want to be closer to my kid than my dad was to me. I really miss that relationship. And what you hear from the women that those guys are marrying is, I'm totally cool with that. I don't want to give up, my job completely, and I want to see myself working, but I also don't think mothering is the only thing I ever want to be seen as being good at. So I plan to share this. The fascinating part is how hard that is for some of those couples to do because of the models they've lived with and also the stereotypes they run up against. What they are receiving support from, though, are a lot of their peers. And it's unusual for a man to take a lot of criticism and for being a good dad, carrying their children around, taking them to work. That's far more acceptable now than it was 20 years ago. Absolutely. And I think the societal changes are way ahead of the institutional changes in that regard. So, making workplaces father-friendly has taken a lot longer than it has make schools father-friendly, who are generally doing a better job of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you guys. I think definitely the role of dads has changed, and it's great to see that society, communities have embraced that change, and also that co-parenting relationships are more egalitarian nowadays. So I'm wondering, from your guys' perspective then, how does this role of dads need to continue to grow in, or what needs to continue to happen in order for this to become maybe more egalitarian, or for dads to feel like this is their role, that kind of thing? What do you think needs to happen?
Well, one of the things that should happen is it should start at the initiation of life. So fathers should take their paternity leave, and they should get to know their babies very early. Their hormones actually are in flux around the time they have a child in a way that sets them up physiologically to fall in love with those children. So don't wait until the kids are ready to play ball or play hockey, but get in there and get to know your baby from the beginning.
Yeah.
Also, mothers and dads need to negotiate early on how to stay out of each other's way and let each other do things differently. Men do things differently than women, but also every two people do things differently. And we all tend to think, and I'm guilty of this too, that my way is the best way because I'm responsible and so I have to make it all happen and make it work. And the truth is, children develop more maturity and more flexibility if they have different styles to sort of bounce off of and to take in and to learn from and to see all of their genes come to life, not just half of them. So that's one of the things that really needs to happen. And the second thing I want to say is that couples need to talk about this. They need to be actively saying to each other, you know, how can I be an involved dad? How can I help you be an involved dad? What do I, you know, do that gets in your way if I'm mom? What do I do that doesn't step up if I'm dad? And, you know, you talk about the color of the nursery, and you talk about what car seats you're going to get. So you got to also talk about what you're going to do consciously to raise this child.
You know, how are you going to handle co-sleeping?
Right.
Who's going to get up night after night? How are we going to handle breastfeeding? What do we want to do with your parents who want to be so involved? And those, we know there's some interesting research that says when couples actually talk about that and they commit to problem solving about it together, they don't have to come up with all the answers, but they have to commit to doing it together. Their kids suffer less terrible twos in toddlerhood. Isn't that interesting? That's a worthy goal.
And
that's amazing.
Also, mothers, don't think that just because you're breastfeeding, it's all on you.
Right.
With our oldest daughter, I was very lonely at 4 in the morning. I'm sure it was my hormones, but when I got up to breastfeed and Kyle was sleeping and the house was dark, I would feel very sad and very lonely. And once I told Kyle that, he would get up with me and just put a pillow under my arm and pat my head a little bit. And, you know, he would take, even before our child could take a bottle, he was just there showing his support for me. And I had a better time breastfeeding.
Yeah.
And that often led to a more pleasant day the next day. So, guys, it's totally worth it.
Definitely, definitely.
You know, Marcia touched on something when she was talking about the differences, and that's kind of why that's where this slightly cheeky title of Your Dad Let You Do What sneaks in here, Brad.
Yeah.
One of the things that we see quite frequently is that fathers and mothers experience their children pretty different from the beginning of life. Mothers have been carrying these babies. They have a sense of who they are, how active, how inactive they are. They've been talking to them, rubbing their bellies. They're connected. It takes a dad. He starts off a little behind the 8 ball, so he's got. It's really helpful to him if he knows if some midwife or some nurse taught him how to bathe a baby, or how to, you know, grease him up after he's had his first bath, or how she likes. What's the best way to support her head? Dads hate being asked to do things they don't know how to do.
Right.
And so give them tools, and they'll be involved. But one of the things we know from the beginning is that dads do more roughhousing with children than mothers do.
Right.
And they also tend to support exploration of the novel a little more boldly than do mothers.
The novel as in the book, or the novel as in
the novel is in what they don't know about how the world works. And also, they discipline differently. Mothers tend to discipline with a heavy emphasis on the emotional cost to you of not listening to me. We're not friends until you agree with me. Dads are a little less interested in that and more interested in how the kid's going to get along in the real world and not be a jerk. So one of the things that moms often get upset with dads about is that fathers will also often give their children a little longer leash when they're out in the world. You know, you can play with any dog that doesn't look too big or doesn't outweigh you, or mother says no dogs. Father says, as long as you can see me, you can play near the edge of the playground. And sometimes these dads get in trouble with the mothers, and the mothers say, don't you know anything? You're not keeping your child safe. The dads are responding to a different set of values internally, where they feel it's their job to get this kid ready to handle what's slightly on the borders of safe and unsafe.
Right.
And so in attachment, we've got mothers really working to keep children comfortable when they're stressed. We've got dads helping children stay oriented when they're exploring the novel and the new. So your dad let you do what is just a reminder to the moms. You might want to back off that a little bit, because your husband's or your partner's handling style is likely to help your child be a better problem solver once they're away from you.
Awesome. That is so cool. And I appreciate that, guys, because that does talk about the importance of father engagement, and that moms and dads parent differently, and the importance of co-parents working together, communicating, all that great stuff. And so we are just about out of time, so I just want to thank Kyle and Marcia Pruitt for joining our show today, and I appreciate everybody out there checking us out today. Just one more question for you guys. If people want to find you and see your work, where can they go?
They can go to either of our own personal websites,
right.
Kyle Pruitt,
MD,
or Marcia Pruitt. You can also go to the Supporting Father Involvement
Supporting Father Involvement
SFI.
Okay.
Sorry. .com.
Yeah.
And you can also look at our book, Partnership Parenting, and you can get that on Amazon. And otherwise, just Google us. We're around giving talks, writing, and learning as much as we can, and enjoying talking to parents about it. Thanks so much for having us, Brad.
And before you hang up on us, Brad, we want to thank two people. Number one, you. You have been a tenacious and loyal supporter of this program ever since you encountered it. I wish we had 1,000 of you. And number two, the Palix Foundation that started off as the Norleen Foundation. They've been supporting our work when hardly anybody else understood how useful it could be. So we've all been lucky. Thank you, Brad.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Kyle and Marcia. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Take care, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, so we're just going to kind of wrap things up now. Really appreciate hearing from Doctors Kyle and Marcia Pruitt. As I mentioned before, they've been a great inspiration for me, for my work with dads, for my work with the Supporting Father Involvement Program, and actually this show itself. It wouldn't be without them and all the hard work that they've done. As Kyle mentioned, starting in the 80s, and all the great research that they've put into father's role, fatherhood, and now that has helped society grow. And so appreciated, especially with being a dad myself, and how they have inspired me to be a better dad. So big thanks to them. This is, we're going to have one more show next in 2 weeks. Check us out. We're here live on Jess FM. That's jessfm.ca. Please follow us on Instagram and Facebook. I want to make a note that on Instagram, on hashtag SuperDadsYQL, we are asking you to please send us a picture of you and your co-parent working together for your kids. And I have a cute picture there of my wife and I. Well, it's an end product of us setting up a elf on the shelf. Well, it's actually the elf did the work, right? But we just kind of helped facilitate our elf on the shelf's involvement in our house. So we will be back in 2 weeks. We are going to go through some changes with Super Dads. Don't worry, Super Dads is still going to be running. It's going to be slightly different, so I'm going to talk about that in 2 weeks, what the changes are. Thanks again for checking us out. We're Super Dads with Brad Moser, and I'll see you all in 2 weeks. Take care.